Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here at Activate Learn on Twitter. It is time for another book review. It is a sunny Sunday morning. The husband is out playing golf. It is really quiet in the house and I thought to myself, perfect opportunity to do another book review. Now I have been reading a couple of books. I've got a couple of books on the go. And this was one that I recently finished. It's a non-fiction book and it's a book about writing. It was published in 2016. It is by Catherine Devaney and it is called Use Your Words, a myth-busting, no-fear approach to writing. It is a library book, as many of my books are. And I picked this one out of the library really because I thought, well, it is about writing, maybe I can learn something. This book is very different to any other writing book. It's written in such a way that is very comical because Catherine is a comedian and she also runs some online and also face-to-face workshops all around Australia. Now, I wasn't aware of who Catherine Devaney is and I looked her up and she's written heaps, lots of books, lots of articles, and she dabbles in a lot of things, which is really interesting. But I loved her reading style because it was quite comical, and she did have some letters from people who came to her workshops and who started writing and getting their stories into print. Now, the way that it is written, like I mentioned, is unlike a typical writing book. Ultimately, her intention here is that we really have no excuses. If we want to write, we sit down on our bums and just start writing. And that's the entire message in this whole book. And even though technically I'm not a writer, although I have been writing quite a lot and I have contributed as a co-author in different books, and even last year my colleagues and I we wrote this one, which is always lovely to see your writing in print, and we're currently writing our second book. The process of writing to me has been really more fascinating than the actual print of the book itself, if that makes sense. And so I thought maybe I could get some ideas of the process in writing to come out of this. But ultimately, her message is it's not about the process. If we are analysing a lot about how we write, why we write, when we write, what equipment do we have, what tools and tech that we use, then we're not writing, we're not doing the thing that we're supposed to be doing. And so her suggestion, well, no, she basically directs us, forget the excuses, just get your ass in the chair and start writing, which is wonderful, isn't it? Because ultimately we always come up with excuses for ourselves. But she's got a few gems in here that I'd like to share that made me sit up and take note. Now, one of the things she said that, don't waste your time writing all your stuff on social media. And this has been really interesting because I have been using social media quite a lot. And there are times where on Twitter I would write an entire thread of writing and I think to myself, man, that could have been a blog post. That content now has all but kind of disappeared into the ether of the social media networks. And so one of the things that she suggests is stop yourself rather than putting all that content on social media. Wrap it up and put it somewhere else, whether it's an article, a blog post, something that is yours to keep and that you can find in the future and that you can use. Okay, so that is definitely a tip I'm going to take away. There is really no need for me to create long diatribes on Twitter when I could just wrap these up into a blog post. Now, that was the first thing. The second thing I loved is that she said never ask anyone how to get somewhere unless they've been there. Now, what she means is that every man and his dog is going to give you some feedback or how you should be doing things. every man and his dog wants to give you advice, but ultimately don't get advice, don't get feedback from people who haven't done that thing, okay? And again, this is something that I've always taken to heart, in the sense that I've had lots of people tell me, oh, you should write a book, oh, you should build a business, yeah, you should do. And in the end, if it's not right for you, you're going to misalign what you really, really want to do, or what your intention is. So ultimately, when you write your writing, she says, just write it. Don't get feedback from people who have not, well, people who don't know, okay? So because they're going to steer you on different tracks. Of course, you could get feedback through an editing process or whatever, an editor, but yeah, just every man and his dog, don't worry about it. I like that advice. Now, the third thing that I liked was the fact that, and this was a really good tip, she understood that we all get distracted when we write. And one of the things that she recommends, at the back of the book, there's a whole heap of different tips that you could use. This particular tip stood out for me because it was have a guest log on. And what she means by a guest log on your computer is there are times that when you sit at your computer, you could be distracted by the internet or go on different sites. But if you had a guest log on, which had, I guess, only the applications relevant for writing, you can use that guest log on for that thing only. Alternatively, you can also turn off your Wi-Fi so that you don't have your attention scattered elsewhere on the internet, which is my issue. You can ultimately focus on just writing. So these are the kind of like the top tips and the top things I took away from this book. I did enjoy the book. The main message was, though, if you want to start writing, just start writing. There's no way, there's no right or wrong way. It is just your way. Just get writing so you get something on paper. The main message for me is that don't make excuses. We can write a book in 5 minutes a day. And in fact, she mentioned a story in here about someone who would be sending her SMSs of little, I guess, a paragraph, and over time she collected them and he had created a book in the process. So this is my review for Use Your Words. Ultimately, don't make excuses, just sit on your ass and start writing. And you can make time for writing any day. It only takes 5 minutes of your day, 10 minutes of your day, if you just sit down and get things on paper. Anyway, that is it for now. Let me know if you have read this book and if you have any other writing recommendations. Actually, on second thought, don't worry about the recommendations. I'll just start writing.